Read aloud for the Unit 1 test, Arguments and Speeches, Part 1, Multiple Choice. First passage, excerpt from Conservation as a National Duty by President Theodore Roosevelt, May 13, 1908. President Theodore Roosevelt was an avid supporter of conserving America's natural resources. During his administration, the national park system grew dramatically. He also created 51 federal bird reserves, which eventually became a national wildlife refuge. His conservation efforts encompassed over 230 million acres of public land. The natural resources can be divided into two sharply distinguished classes accordingly as they are or are not capable of renewal. Mines, if used, must necessarily be exhausted. The minerals do not and cannot renew themselves. Therefore, in dealing with the coal, the oil, the gas, the iron, the metals generally, all that we can do is to try to see that they are wisely used. The exhaustion is certain to come in time. We can trust that it will be deferred long enough to enable the extraordinarily inventive genius of our people to devise means and methods for which or less adequately replacing what is lost. But the exhaustion is sure to come. The second class of resources consists of those which cannot be only used in such manner as to leave them undiminished for our children, but can actually be improved by wise use. The soil, the forests, the waterways come in this category. Everyone knows that a really good farmer leaves his farm more valuable at the end of his life than it was when he first took hold of it. So with the waterways, so with the forests. In dealing with mineral resources, man is able to improve on nature only by putting the resources to a beneficial use, which is in the end exhausts them. But in dealing with the soil and its products, man can improve on nature by compelling the resources to renew and even reconstruct themselves in such a manner as to serve increasingly beneficial uses, while the living waters can be so controlled as to multiply their benefits. Question 1 asks you, which concept underlies Roosevelt's explanation of these two resources? A, each type of resource should be used appropriately in its own way. B, coal and metals are a more urgent priority than renewable resources. Or C, conservationists no longer ignore the problem of renewable resources. Passage number 2, an excerpt from How to Behave, a pocket manual of Republican etiquette by Samuel R. Wells. Good manners are not to be put on and off with one's best clothes. Politeness is an article for everyday wear. If you don it only on special and rare occasions, it will be sure to sit awkwardly upon you. If you are not well behaved in your own family circle, you will hardly be truly so anywhere. However strictly you may conform to the observances of good breeding when in society. The true gentleman or lady is a gentleman or lady at all times and in all places, at home as well as abroad, in the field or workshop, or in the kitchen as well as in the parlor. A snob is a snob always and everywhere. What is the author's purpose for this passage? This is your question 2. What is the author's purpose for this passage? To convince people to freely express their emotions, to persuade people to demonstrate good manners at all times, or to encourage people to embrace the feeling of superiority over others. Question 3. What rhetorical device is used in this passage? Ethos, pathos, or logos? Passage 3. Again with How to Behave, a pocket manual of Republican etiquette by Samuel R. Wells. American children, we are sorry to be obliged to say, are not, as a general rule, well behaved. They are rude and disrespectful, if not disobedient. Through whose fault comes this state of things. American boys and girls have naturally as much good sense and good nature as those of any other nation, and when all well trained, no children are more courteous and agreeable. The fault lies in their education. In the days of our grandfathers, children were taught manners at school. A rather rude, backwoods sort of manners, it is true, but better than the no manners at all of the present day. We must blame parents in this matter rather than their children. If you would have your children grow up beloved and respected by their elders as well as their contemporaries, teach them good manners in their childhood. The young sovereign should be first learn to obey, that he may be the better fitted to command in his turn. So for question 4, which statement in this excerpt uses fallacious reasoning? We must blame the parents in this matter rather than their children because people's faults cannot be blamed on other people. B. If you would rather have your children grow up beloved and respected by their elders as well as their contemporaries, teach them good manners in their childhood, because other people's opinions of younger people is not important. C. If you would rather have your children grow up beloved and respected by their elders as well as their contemporaries, teach them good manners in their childhood, because the author says it without any proof. Question 4. This is an excerpt from A Crisis of Confidence by Jimmy Carter in July 15, 1979. In the 1960s, 3 American leaders were assassinated. In the early 1970s, America lost its first war, the Vietnam War, and saw a president resign due to the Watergate scandal. In 1973 and 79, America faced an oil crisis which caused gas rationing and long lines at the gas station. Morale was low, and many people felt hopeless. On July 15th, President Carter gave this speech in an effort to resolve hope and to inspire citizens to action. In a nation that was proud of hard work, strong families, close-knit communities, and our faith in God, too many of us now tend to worship self-indulgence and consumption. Human identity is no longer defined by what one does, but by what one owns. But we've discovered that owning things and consuming things does not satisfy our longing for meaning. We've learned that piling up material goods cannot fill the emptiness of lives which have no confidence or purpose. The symptoms of this crisis of the American spirit are all around us. For the first time in history of our country, a majority of our people believe that the next 5 years will be worse than the past 5 years. 2/3 of our people do not even vote. The productivity of American workers is actually dropping, and the willingness of Americans to save for the future has fallen below that of all other people in the Western world. All of the traditions of our past, all the lessons of our heritage, all the promises of our future to another path, the path of common purpose and the restoration of American values. The path leads to true freedom of our nation and ourselves. We can take the first steps down that path as we begin to solve our energy problem. Energy will be the immediate test of our ability to unite this nation, and it can also be the standard around which we rally. On the battlefield of energy, we can win for our nation a new confidence, and we can seize control again of our common destiny. In little more than 2 decades, we've gone from a position of energy independence, to one in which almost half of the oil we use comes from the foreign countries at prices that are going through the roof. Our excessive dependence on OPEC has already taken a tremendous toll on our economy and our people. This is the direct cause of the long lines which have made millions of you spend aggravating hours waiting for gasoline. It's a cause of the increased inflation and unemployment that we now face. This intolerable dependence on foreign oil threatens our economic independence and the very security of our nation. The energy crisis is real. It is worldwide. It is a clear and present danger to our nation. These are facts, and we simply must face them. Question number 5. Which statement best represents reasonable evidence to support the claim that America is too dependent upon foreign oil? A. Most of American oil comes from foreign countries. B. The oil crisis isn't just America's problem, it is a worldwide problem. Or C. An effort to reduce American dependence on oil will unite our nation. Question 6. Which quotation about America's low morale is based on fallacious reasoning? For the first time in the history of our country, a majority of our people believe that the next 5 years will be worse than the past 5 years. B. On the battlefield of energy, we can win for our nation a new confidence, and we can seize control of our common destiny. Or C. This is the direct cause of the long lines of which have made millions of you spend aggravating hours waiting for gasoline. Question 5, or passage 5, excerpt from What to the Slave is the 4th of July. What am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. What then remains to be argued? It is that slavery is not divine, that God did not establish it. Our doctors of divinity are mistaken. There is blasphemy in the thought that which is inhuman cannot be divine. Who can reason as such a proposition? That they can? Nay, I cannot. The time for such a argument is past. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability, I could reach the nation's ear. I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not the light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquakes. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused, and the propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. What to the American slave is the 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than any other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, and your denunciations of tyrants brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgiving, with all of your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up the crimes which a disgrace of a nation savages. There is not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and more bloody than the people of the United States at this very hour. How does Douglas use hypophora to advance his purpose? Question 7. A, he asks the audience questions and then answers those questions to have them think about the meaning of slavery in the 4th of July. He uses imagery to create the mental pictures in his audience's mind about what American slaves' lives are like. Or C, he explains to the audience that he is a credible and trustworthy person, that they will believe what he has to say. Question 8. Reread the example. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless, your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery, your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings with all of your religious parade. Which best describes how this use of rhetoric affects the speech? A, by using similar phrasing, the speaker links one part of the speech to another. B, by repeating words, the speaker creates a dramatic delivery to emphasize an important point. Or C, using phrases related to the same subject, refocuses interest on the original topic. Question 9. Which sentence is parallelism? A, the feeling the nation must be quickened, the consciousness of the nation must be roused, the propriety of the nation must be startled, the hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. B, I answer, a day that reveals to him more than any other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. Or C, there is not a nation on this earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than the people of these United States at this very hour. And then question 10, would you like 4 points for completing this test? Please make sure you complete this test and get it submitted. As soon as you hit submit, it should show up in your gradebook.